76. John Adams wrote these words to his wife, Abigail. The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch of the history of America. I'm apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the Day of Deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other. From this time forward, forevermore. He was a couple days short. He said July the 2nd, but on July the 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and others signed the Declaration of Independence, which was in the mind of John Adams the day of deliverance. It seems odd to me that a people who could see the value in their own deliverance could not rationalize the immorality they were practicing in the form of slavery of people of African heritage. But almost 100 years later, on January 1st, 1863, with great opposition, President Abraham Lincoln issued an executive order known as the Emancipation Proclamation, which called for the release of all slaves. But slave owners in Florida, they didn't comply until 5 months later. And Texas didn't comply until 6 months later. There were some folk that could not believe that they had let up enough to allow for black folk to be released from slavery. That's unfathomable. I can't think that how did we take our eyes off the ball that black folk have been released from slavery? So they worked passionately to implement Jim Crow laws. And you know, there are some folk today that can't believe that they let up and allowed a black man to be elected president of the United States in 2008. How in the world did we take our foot off of their necks that much to allow Barack Hussein Obama to be elected president in the same country that elected George Washington and Abraham Lincoln? These folk have now worked themselves into a frenzy and will say everything on their minds without apology. They follow their leaders, Trump, DeSantis, and all the other names that cannot believe how did we let up so much to where black folk are seemingly experiencing the same right. How did we let up so much to where a black man could be elected president and a black woman can be elected vice president of our United States? We got to make America great again. Because this ain't working right here. They fell asleep and they're regretting that they fell asleep and that they allowed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to occur for all citizens. They said all citizens, but they didn't mean